really from the 80s on, high quality, rigorous scientific survey samples and surveys were being done, and we were getting really good response rates. Over the years, the participation among the public has been decreasing. So statisticians are putting themselves out there. They're doing critical thinking. They're becoming creative. They're realizing that our goal is to increase knowledge and insight, not simply using one method to generate an estimate, but using all sources of data. San Antonio had a profound effect on my career and my life. It's a heavily Mexican-American community and city. I grew up as a latchkey kid. I don't know that they use that term because it doesn't exist anymore, really. But back in the 60s, when I was a kid, both parents worked, which meant, when you're in school, that's fine, you're taken care of. But in the summers when you're off, you're home alone. That led to some great adventures, and that sense of adventure stayed with me. The first job I took, I said, oh my God, I'm gonna apply to be sampling statistician at Temple University's Institute for Survey Research. I'd never been north of Dallas, Texas. I was so scared, but I took the risk and said, let's see what the adventure brings my wife and I. And it turned out that every job I've had since that time has been so scary that I was shaking in my boots by the time I said, okay. I had no idea whether I was going to be able to do it. And somehow it worked out. Actually, that's one of the messages that I tell students. I say, you have got to stretch yourself way beyond your comfort zone. If you're always successful, things are going okay, that means you're aiming way too low. Let me tell you another story. It's one that I told in my ethics vetting during the time I was being nominated and reviewed for the Bureau of the Census. They asked me, have you ever done anything that is unethical? And I said, yes. When I had a private company, we did a project, and it was a project to look at the egress of the World Trade Center, the exit routes of the people who survived after the 9/11 airplane collisions or jet collisions into the building, to get a more factual set of information on the efficacy of the safety measures they put into place. So they asked about the storm weather smell, which would be like the heavy rain type of thing, which would indicate that the sprinklers were working. They asked about the ability for firefighters to come through and people to go down in the same stairwell, which would be an indication of the adequacy of the width of the stairwell. We actually were able to talk to some of the people that were above, there were only a handful, above the floor of impact, who made it out. How did that happen? Well, it turns out that they went against the advice that they were being told, which was to go up, not down. And they said, no, I'm going down. It was an amazing study, but then there was a disruption with the contract to the point that we had to stop work on it. And I was told we were not going to provide the final report, all that information gathered. So the unethical thing I did is I provided the report. I actually get choked up about it sometimes because it was the right thing to do. 60 years ago, when we developed questions about income, if you had a job, you either had a weekly paycheck, bi-weekly paycheck, or a monthly paycheck. So asking a question back then, how much income did you make last month for your household? It was pretty easy. And here we are now. Our economy is totally different. A huge chunk of our population works episodically. They have multiple part-time jobs. They do gig work on top of all that. There's a lot of bartering going on, especially in rural areas. So a question that historically has been really simple is now increasingly difficult today. And think about it. Right now, all we're doing, asking the same questions as 60 years ago, what's the net result? The net result is that the people we need to know the most about, the folks who are living on the edge with episodic work and, gig work and such, those are the folks we're measuring the least accurately. You'll find this in the federal system regardless, not just the federal statistical system, but it's well ingrained there. When there are issues of things like evaluations, an assessment of this or an assessment of that, what do? They say, we need hard data. And I've always been of the mind that what we need is more knowledge. We need more knowledge about what's going on in the community so we can help get a better sense of how to increase response rates. There are other methods, like qualitative methods. In-depth interviewing and focus groups and things of that sort are ways to answer why questions without quantifying them. Never in the history of mankind has there ever been a perfect census. They all have strengths and limitations. And the issue is they need to be good enough for the purpose that's intended. They have to be high enough quality, and that's what we do. Internally, at the Census Bureau, I have tried desperately to be the inspirer-in-chief by talking about how we have AI and we have machine learning and we're doing, recreating these new systems. But what folks really need to understand is that a key part of transformation is changing how you think and valuing different perspectives on a particular problem. We have something called the Community Resilience Estimates Program, which takes Census American Community Survey data and creates, using small area estimates, data profiles down to the census tract level. We've never done that before. And then we take independent data from FEMA, the Emergency Response Government Entity, and from NOAA, the National Weather Service and such, so that contemporaneously, we can take a look at what are the flood areas for and what were the damage areas for Hurricanes Milton and Helene. And what are the profiles of the population there? And then down to the census tract level, what are the most vulnerable populations, the communities and the people that would have the most challenges in responding to a natural disaster? We're really entering a new world where we're providing data that is more contemporaneous and relevant to the population at their greatest time in need. And that role of statisticians, not just to say, here's a data collection and here's the product, but instead say, what are the issues are you working on? We have data from all these different sources that we can put together to help you respond exactly to that need. Statistics and surveys in general are, to me, highly valued areas that are evergreen. There's always going to be a role for someone to say, you shouldn't be asking the question that way. You need to ask it in a way where you're actually getting something that you're going to be able to use to address your specific issue or your sampling. If you do that and you don't understand the nature of non-response, you will be coming to erroneous conclusions. So you need to leave open the possibility that you're not perfect in terms of the responses you get. And I think our role and our value is, as I've always said for statisticians, if you want to make yourself more valuable, what you do is take that technical training, ingest it, make it part of you, but also you need to bring your values, your culture, your life experiences, and combine that with that technical training. And then you will become one of those different thinking voices, those diverse voices that are needed to advance innovation and come up with more and better insights and better methods and better data.